The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was filled with light and sound. Massive screens floated in the air, each one showing a different part of Earth. Cities burned. Human ships broke apart in space. Long lines of smoke rose from the planet's surface. Alien leaders watched in comfort, seated on high platforms made of crystal and metal. Many of them believed this war was already over. Humans had fought hard, but now they were breaking. The council speakers spoke calmly, their voices full of pride. Earth, they said, had finally learned its place in the galaxy. The weaker species always fell in the end. On the main screen, a human defense fleet made its last stand near Earth's moon. The ships were old, damaged, and outnumbered. Alien weapons cut through them one by one. Explosions flashed like small suns, then faded into darkness. Some council members laughed. Others looked bored. To them, this was history repeating itself. Another young species had reached too far and paid the price. The council chairman raised a clawed hand and announced that Earth would soon surrender. There was no need for further attacks. The humans would beg for peace. But something strange happened next. Earth went quiet. One by one, human signals vanished from the screens. Military channels closed. Civil broadcasts ended. Even emergency beacons stopped transmitting. The noise of human communication, which had filled the galaxy for decades, disappeared completely. The council hall grew silent. The screens now showed a planet that looked wounded but calm, as if it were holding its breath. The chairman frowned. This was not how surrender usually looked. Deep in space, alien commanders tried to re-establish contact. They sent demands, threats, and warnings. There was no reply. Probes were launched toward Earth, but many lost signal before reaching the planet. A few that survived sent back strange data. Earth's surface was still active, but nothing was leaving the planet. No ships. No messages. No signs of panic. It was as if humanity had closed every door at once. Some council members began to feel uneasy. A veteran admiral leaned forward and studied the screens closely. He had fought many wars and had seen many defeats. This silence, he knew, was dangerous. In his long career, only one kind of enemy went quiet like this. Not the defeated. The ones preparing something terrible. He warned the council, but his words were brushed aside. Humans, the others said, were emotional and weak. They were afraid. They were hiding. On Earth, far below the burning skies, the truth was very different. In deep underground chambers, protected by layers of rock and shielded metal, human leaders gathered. Soldiers, scientists, engineers, and commanders stood together in a long room lit by soft white light. No one spoke loudly. Every face showed pain, anger, and focus. They had lost millions. Cities were gone. But Earth was not broken. A single phrase appeared on a central screen, simple and cold. Phase 0 authorized. This command had never been used before. It was not taught in public history. Even many high-ranking officers had believed it was only a story. Phase 0 meant that Earth accepted total loss or total victory. There would be no surrender. No retreat. The old rules of war no longer applied. With steady hands, officers confirmed the order. Systems older than the current governments came online. Hidden factories woke from decades of sleep. Deep space stations changed their alignment and prepared for launch. Back in the Galactic Council, the silence continued. Hours passed. Then days. Earth still sent nothing. The Empire's forces began to feel nervous. Patrol fleets reported strange movements near empty regions of space. Long-range sensors detected energy spikes that vanished before they could be tracked. Supply lines started to fail without explanation. Ships disappeared between stars, leaving no trace of battle. The galaxy was used to loud wars, full of noise and fear. This quiet was worse. The Council demanded action. A massive invasion fleet was ordered to move closer to Earth. Thousands of ships formed perfect lines and advanced with confidence. As they approached the edge of the human system, something felt wrong. Navigation systems showed small errors. Communication delays increased. Space itself seemed heavier, harder to move through. Still, no human ships appeared. No warnings were sent. Only silence greeted them. Then, without any dramatic announcement, the stars around the fleet changed. The darkness between them shifted, as if space had taken a slow breath. Several alien ships vanished in a blink, not exploding, not burning, simply gone. Sensors screamed with errors. Commanders shouted orders that never reached their crews. Panic spread, but there was still no sign of a human attack force. Only absence. Only fear. Far away, deep under Earth, the human leaders watched their own screens. They did not cheer. They did not smile. They knew this was only the beginning. What they had released could not be easily controlled. The storm was coming, and it would not look like any war the galaxy had ever known. Above them, Earth remained silent. And across the stars, the galaxy finally began to understand. That silence was not surrender. It was a warning. The silence around Earth did not break. It spread. Across the nearby star systems, communication lines began to fail in small, quiet ways. Messages arrived late or not at all. Navigation data changed by tiny amounts that should have been impossible. Alien crews blamed software errors or human sabotage, but no proof was found. The Galactic Council demanded clear answers, yet none came. Earth remained sealed, dark, and calm. The quiet felt planned, controlled, and patient. Inside the council hall, tension replaced confidence. Leaders who once laughed now argued. Some wanted to strike harder, to burn what remained of Earth and end the fear. Others suggested caution. Reports of missing ships continued to arrive. These were not frontline vessels but scouts, supply carriers, and relay stations. They vanished without alarms or battle signals. It was as if the galaxy itself was swallowing them. The council chairman ordered full investigation, but even the investigators failed to return. On Earth, far from the eyes of the galaxy, Phase Zero continued. Deep underground, ancient systems hummed with low power. Human engineers worked in silence, their movements calm and exact. They followed instructions written decades earlier by people long dead. The plans had been sealed after Earth's first contact with alien life. Humanity had known one day the galaxy might turn against them. Phase Zero was not built for victory alone. It was built for survival at any cost. Hidden shipyards, buried beneath oceans and mountains, began to open. Massive doors moved for the first time in generations. From the darkness rose ships that did not match any known human design. They were not sleek or beautiful. They were dense, heavy, and dark, built to endure impossible conditions. Their engines did not flare brightly. They bent space in slow, careful waves. Each ship carried systems that even their crews did not fully understand. The crews themselves were different. These were not standard soldiers. They were selected from every nation, trained in secrecy, and prepared for missions with no return dates. They did not speak much. Each of them knew the price of Phase Zero. Once deployed, there would be no turning back. Families would never know where they went. History might never record their names. Still, none of them refused. In the Galactic Council, an old historian requested permission to speak. His species had survived 3 near extinctions. He had studied the rise and fall of many civilizations. He warned the Council that humans were acting in a pattern seen only once before. Long ago, a forgotten species had gone silent in the same way. They had not begged for peace. They had erased their enemies so completely that even their name was lost. The Council dismissed the story as myth. Humans, they insisted, were too divided to act as one. But humans were acting as one. On Earth, old borders meant nothing. Governments had handed control to a single command structure. Resources flowed without question. Energy grids shifted priorities. Civilian systems were shut down to feed military power. People were afraid, but they trusted the silence. Earth's leaders had told them only one thing: stay calm. Stay hidden. The planet would protect itself. Beyond human space, the first real sign of Phase Zero appeared. An alien stronghold on the edge of Empire space went dark. It did not explode. Its star did not go supernova. It simply stopped emitting energy. When scouts arrived, they found a dead system. Power cores were cold. Defense platforms were intact but lifeless. Not a single body was found. No damage. No struggle. The station looked abandoned, yet records showed it had been full hours earlier. Fear finally took hold. The Council ordered all fleets to regroup. Borders were sealed. Travel was restricted. Panic spread among civilian populations across the galaxy. Trade collapsed. Old alliances cracked. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. What were humans doing? Why had they chosen silence instead of rage? On Earth, the answer was simple. Rage was loud. Silence was deadly. Human commanders reviewed long-term projections. Phase Zero was not designed for quick revenge. It was designed to change the rules of the galaxy. Every action was slow, quiet, and exact. No warnings were sent. No victories announced. Fear would spread faster without explanation. In a final meeting before deployment, a human general addressed the Phase Zero crews. His voice was steady. He told them the galaxy believed Earth was weak. That belief was their greatest weapon. They would strike supply lines, command centers, and symbols of control. They would not seek glory. They would not seek mercy. Their goal was simple: make the galaxy stop. As the first Phase Zero ships slipped into folded space, Earth remained silent. No signals followed them. No record of their launch existed in public systems. To the rest of the galaxy, nothing had changed. But the storm was no longer forming. It had already begun to move. The first sign that something had gone terribly wrong appeared far from Earth. In a quiet border system controlled by the Galactic Empire, routine traffic moved along stable trade routes. Cargo ships followed their schedules. Patrol vessels scanned empty space out of habit rather than concern. This system was considered safe. No human ships had ever been detected anywhere near it. That was why the alarm, when it finally came, felt unreal. A single patrol cruiser reported a shadow where no object should exist. Sensors showed a shape without mass, a presence without energy. Before the crew could react, the signal cut off. No explosion followed. No debris appeared. The cruiser was simply gone. Command assumed a system error and ordered recalibration. Then a second ship vanished. Then a third. Panic spread through the fleet, but there was still no visible enemy. From the darkness between stars, the first Phase Zero vessel observed in silence. Its hull absorbed light, bending it away, making the ship almost impossible to detect. Inside, human operators worked without words. Their screens showed layers of data no alien sensor could read. The ship did not target enemy vessels directly. Instead, it targeted the space around them, folding small sections inward and releasing them at precise moments. To outside observers, ships did not explode. They slipped out of existence. Empire Command rushed reinforcements into the system. Destroyers arrived in tight formation, weapons charged and shields raised. They fired blindly into empty space, hoping to hit something unseen. The shots passed through nothing and struck nothing. Human crews watched patiently. Phase Zero doctrine did not reward speed. It rewarded certainty. Only when conditions were perfect did the human ship act again. A pulse spread through the system, too subtle to be called a weapon. It touched power relays, navigation cores, and communication arrays. One by one, alien systems shut down. Engines died. Weapons went silent. Crews found themselves floating helplessly, unable to call for help. Some ships drifted into stars. Others collided with each other in slow, terrible crashes. Still, no human vessel appeared on any screen. At the center of the system, the main command station tried to activate its emergency broadcast. The signal failed. Instead, a single message appeared on internal displays, written in simple translated symbols. "Remain still." The station commander felt fear for the first time in his long career. Humans were not demanding surrender. They were giving instructions, as if the outcome was already decided. On Earth, analysts monitored the operation with cold focus. This system was not chosen for its military value. It was chosen because it sat on several major supply routes. Its fall would not be loud, but it would be felt everywhere. Phase Zero was about pressure, not destruction. Make the galaxy feel unsafe everywhere, all at once. Within hours, reports spread. Ships entering the border system did not return. Trade convoys vanished. Insurance networks collapsed under sudden loss. The Empire's economy began to strain. Leaders demanded answers from their military, but the military had none. They were fighting an enemy that refused to be seen, heard, or understood. The Galactic Council assembled in emergency session. Panic was no longer hidden behind polite language. Accusations flew between species. Some blamed human trickery. Others blamed ancient weapons long thought impossible. A few whispered the word extinction. The old historian spoke again, this time without asking permission. He said the pattern was clear now. Humans were not reacting. They were executing a plan prepared long before the war began. As if to prove his point, another system went dark. Then another. Each loss was quiet and clean. No ruins. No survivors. Only absence. The galaxy had always believed war meant fire and noise. Humans were teaching a different lesson. War could also mean silence, removal, and fear that never found a target. Inside the Phase Zero ship, a young officer finally asked the question everyone carried. How long would this continue? The commander answered without looking away from his screen. Until the galaxy understands. Until they stop. There was no anger in his voice. Only calm. Back on Earth, the public still heard nothing. The skies remained empty. No victory messages were sent. Humanity stayed in the dark by design. Phase Zero did not seek applause. It sought results. The more confused the galaxy became, the stronger Earth's position grew. At the edge of the border system, the human ship prepared to leave. It had completed its task. As it folded space around itself and vanished, the system remained quiet. No signals escaped. No warnings followed. Only fear traveled outward, carried by rumors and unanswered questions. For the first time in galactic history, a single species had turned absence into a weapon. And the galaxy, watching its borders fade into nothing, began to realize that Earth's counterattack was not a single strike. It was a spreading shadow, and it had only just begun. The galaxy no longer argued about whether humans were dangerous. That question had already been answered. The new question was worse. How far would they go? Across dozens of star systems, fear spread faster than any fleet. Trade routes were abandoned. Civilian worlds closed their ports. Military forces pulled back toward core territories, leaving wide regions of space empty. Silence followed them like a living thing. Inside the Galactic Council chamber, the atmosphere was heavy. Leaders who once spoke with pride now whispered. Reports scrolled endlessly across shared displays. Supply shortages. Missing fleets. Entire systems that had gone dark without a single shot fired. The Empire's strength was built on control and movement. Humans were attacking both without ever showing their face. An emergency session was called by the High Command. They needed answers, not guesses. Analysts reviewed every known human weapon, doctrine, and psychological profile. None of it explained what was happening. Humans were not acting with rage or desperation. This was controlled, careful, and patient. That realization frightened them more than any superweapon. A captured human officer was brought before the Council. He had been taken early in the war, long before Phase Zero began. The Council believed he might break under pressure. They were wrong. The human stood calmly, hands bound, eyes steady. When asked about the silent attacks, he said nothing. When threatened, he did not react. Only when asked one final question did he speak. Why are humans doing this? His answer was simple. Because you taught us that mercy is weakness. That single sentence spread through the council chamber like a cold wind. Some leaders demanded the prisoner be executed. Others wanted him questioned further. But the damage was already done. The galaxy had pushed humanity into a corner and expected them to collapse. Instead, humans had adapted. Far from the Council, Phase Zero continued to unfold. Human strike units moved through folded space, appearing only long enough to complete their objectives. This time, they targeted something new. Information. Data vaults, relay hubs, and historical archives vanished. Records of Empire victories, laws, and authority disappeared overnight. Worlds woke to find their past incomplete and their future uncertain. On one such world, a governor stared at blank screens where centuries of records had once been stored. Without those records, he had no legal power, no proof of rank, no command structure. Panic broke out among his advisors. The humans had not attacked his world directly. They had removed its meaning. Earth's commanders watched these developments closely. This phase of the plan was dangerous. Removing information could destabilize entire civilizations. But that was the point. The Empire ruled through order and history. Take those away, and control collapsed. Humans understood systems. They had built and survived many of them. Within the human fleet, doubts existed. Some officers questioned whether this went too far. Entire populations were suffering. The response from command was firm but calm. The Empire chose this war. Humans were ending it in the fastest way possible. A long war would cost more lives on all sides. Silence and pressure would force surrender without endless bloodshed. The Galactic Council finally made a decision. They would speak to Earth. Not with threats, but with an offer. A ceasefire. A chance to negotiate. They prepared a formal message, translated into every known human language. It was respectful, careful, and urgent. When they sent it, they waited. No reply came. Instead, another system went dark. This one was closer to the Empire's core than any before. Panic erupted. Core worlds were no longer safe. The idea that humans could reach anywhere without warning shattered the last sense of security the galaxy had. On Earth, the silence remained unbroken. No response was given to the Council's message. Phase Zero doctrine was clear. Talk comes after understanding. The galaxy had not yet understood. In a hidden human command center, projections showed the Empire fracturing. Minor species began to break away, refusing to provide ships or resources. Old rivalries resurfaced. Trust evaporated. Humans had not destroyed the Empire with force. They were letting it tear itself apart. A Phase Zero commander reviewed the next operation. This one was different. Riskier. It targeted a symbol, not a system. A fleet academy where the Empire trained its future leaders. The goal was not destruction. It was humiliation. To show that no place, not even the heart of their power, was unreachable. As the human ships moved into position, one officer quietly asked what would happen when the galaxy finally surrendered. The commander paused before answering. Then we stop. We go silent again. That is when they will fear us the most. Far across the stars, the Empire's leaders felt something new. Not anger. Not hatred. Regret. They had believed humans were just another species to control. They were wrong. Humanity had turned silence into strategy and patience into a weapon. And as the shadow of Phase Zero crept closer to the core worlds, the galaxy realized this war was no longer about victory. It was about survival. The Empire's core worlds had always believed themselves untouchable. For thousands of cycles, no enemy fleet had crossed their inner defenses. Massive fortresses floated near key stars, layered with shields and surrounded by constant patrols. These worlds were symbols of power, stability, and order. When reports first arrived that Phase Zero activity was approaching the core, most leaders refused to believe it. Humans, they said, could not reach this far without being detected. They were wrong. The first warning did not come from sensors or scouts. It came from silence. One of the core communication hubs failed to check in at its scheduled time. Engineers assumed routine maintenance. Then a second hub went quiet. Then a third. Within hours, large sections of the Empire's inner network went dark. Messages could no longer move freely between core worlds. For the first time in history, the Empire could not speak to itself. At the Galactic Council, fear finally replaced denial. Emergency lights filled the chamber as leaders shouted over each other. Military commanders demanded full mobilization. Civilian representatives begged for protection. The council chairman ordered the activation of the core defense fleets. Thousands of ships moved into formation, surrounding the most important systems. Weapons charged. Shields strengthened. They waited for an enemy that still refused to appear. Deep in folded space, Phase Zero ships watched everything. Human commanders had expected this reaction. The core fleets were powerful, but they were also predictable. They relied on communication, coordination, and visible threats. Humans provided none of those. Instead, they struck where the Empire could not defend itself. The target was the Fleet Academy of Verex Prime, the heart of Imperial military tradition. Generations of admirals had trained there. Its destruction would not weaken the Empire's weapons, but it would shatter its confidence. Phase Zero ships entered the system in total silence. They did not engage patrols. They did not disable defenses. They went straight for the Academy's central command node. Inside the Academy, cadets were in training drills when the lights went out. Simulators froze. Gravity shifted slightly, just enough to make people stumble. Instructors shouted orders that never reached anyone. Emergency systems failed to activate. Confusion spread fast. Then every screen inside the facility turned on at once. A single human symbol appeared. Simple. Calm. Unmoving. No explosion followed. No attack came. After several long seconds, power returned. The Academy was intact. No one was harmed. But when officers checked their systems, they found something horrifying. Every tactical database, every combat doctrine, every classified lesson was gone. Centuries of military knowledge erased in moments. Panic exploded across the core worlds. If humans could reach the Academy, they could reach anywhere. The message was clear without words. Your defenses mean nothing. Your power is an illusion. The Galactic Council sent another message to Earth, this time openly pleading. They offered withdrawal from human space, reparations, and recognition of Earth as a sovereign power. The message was broadcast on every possible channel. Again, Earth did not respond. Instead, the Empire began to collapse from within. Officers questioned orders. Admirals argued over strategy without shared data. Fleets hesitated, unsure whether moving made them targets. Minor species within the Empire declared independence, knowing the core could no longer protect them. The Empire's strength drained away without a single major battle. On Earth, Phase Zero Command reviewed the situation. The goal was close. The Empire was no longer capable of coordinated war. But there was still one risk. Desperation. A cornered enemy might choose destruction over defeat. Human leaders debated their next move carefully. They needed to end the war before the Empire did something irreversible. The decision was made to send a message. Not a threat. Not a demand. A truth. For the first time since Phase Zero began, Earth broke its silence. A single transmission was sent across the galaxy. It was short and translated into every known language. We do not seek your end. We seek your stillness. Stop, and this ends. The galaxy held its breath. On the Council worlds, leaders listened in shock. The message was not angry. It was not proud. It was final. They understood now. Humans were not fighting for revenge. They were enforcing a boundary. After long hours of debate, the Galactic Council voted. All forces would withdraw from human space. All attacks would cease. The Empire would accept Earth as an equal, not a subject. The order was sent out immediately. Phase Zero ships monitored the withdrawal. When fleets turned away, no human weapons activated. When borders were restored, no systems went dark. True to their word, humans stopped. Earth returned to silence, but this time it was different. The galaxy understood it now. That quiet was not fear or weakness. It was control. Across the stars, worlds slowly resumed communication. Trade began again. But something had changed forever. No one joked about humans anymore. No one called them weak. The Empire survived, but it was no longer unquestioned. And in the space between stars, where Phase Zero ships rested unseen, humanity waited. Silent. Watching. Ready. The war was over, but the galaxy did not feel at peace. Fleets had withdrawn, borders were restored, and the Galactic Council declared a new era of cooperation. On paper, everything looked calm. In reality, fear still moved quietly between the stars. Earth had won without celebration, and that victory unsettled everyone. No one knew what humans would do next, and that uncertainty was heavier than open conflict. Across former Empire space, governments struggled to regain control. Systems that had lost data, leadership, or trust could not return to normal overnight. Some worlds blamed the Council for provoking Earth. Others blamed humans for going too far. Old alliances remained broken. The Empire still existed, but it was weaker, slower, and cautious. Every decision was now made with one question in mind. How would Earth react? On Earth, Phase Zero was officially paused, not ended. Human leaders understood that fear fades over time. To ensure lasting peace, the galaxy needed one final lesson. Not a threat, but an understanding of limits. Hidden beneath Earth's surface, a restricted council met in silence. Scientists, generals, and historians studied one final option. A weapon that had never been used, never tested in war. A weapon that many believed should never exist. They called it the Stillness Engine. The Stillness Engine was not built to destroy planets or stars. It was built to stop them. It could lock a region of space into perfect balance, freezing energy transfer, halting reactions, and suspending motion at a fundamental level. Inside its field, weapons could not fire, engines could not burn, and stars could not erupt. It was absolute control, and it terrified even its creators. The debate was intense. Some argued that revealing such power would only create new enemies. Others believed the galaxy needed proof that humans could end any future war before it began. In the end, a careful compromise was chosen. The Stillness Engine would be demonstrated once. In empty space. With full warning. No lives would be harmed. The Galactic Council was notified of the demonstration. The message was clear and calm. Earth would activate a device in an uninhabited region. Observers were invited. There was no threat in the words, but the implication was impossible to ignore. The Council agreed, though many members felt dread rather than curiosity. Fleets from dozens of species gathered at a safe distance from the chosen system. Sensors were calibrated to maximum sensitivity. Scientists prepared to record everything. They expected a powerful explosion, a massive energy wave, or some new form of destruction. What they saw was worse. When the Stillness Engine activated, nothing happened. At least, nothing visible. Then stars within the region stopped shining. Not dimmed. Stopped. Light froze in place, trapped like glass. Energy readings dropped to zero. Time did not stop, but everything within the field became perfectly still. Ships that had drifted too close found their engines unresponsive, their crews unable to move forward or back. Panic rose, but no damage occurred. After exactly 60 seconds, the field released. Light continued its journey. Stars resumed fusion. Ships regained control. The system returned to normal as if nothing had happened. Except everyone had seen it. The message was unmistakable. Humans could end war without fighting. They could stop entire regions of space from functioning. No shield, no fleet, no strategy could resist it. The galaxy was not facing a violent species. It was facing one that had mastered restraint. The Council convened immediately. Fear was no longer the dominant emotion. Respect was. They voted unanimously to sign the Accord of Stillness, a new galactic law. No military force would be used against Earth. No weapons of mass destruction would be developed without shared oversight. Humanity would hold a permanent seat on the Council, with veto power equal to the founding species. On Earth, Phase Zero commanders watched the results. The demonstration had worked, but it came at a cost. Some human citizens feared what their own leaders had revealed. Others felt pride mixed with worry. Power like this changed everything. Human leaders addressed the public openly for the first time since the war began. They spoke of responsibility, restraint, and the price of survival. They reminded humanity why Phase Zero had existed. Not to rule the galaxy, but to ensure no one could rule them. Across the galaxy, schools rewrote history texts. Humans were no longer described as emotional newcomers. They were studied as a strategic species, one that turned patience into dominance. Young cadets learned a new lesson. Loud wars fail. Quiet ones end everything. In the empty system where the stillness engine had been tested, nothing remained to mark the moment. No ruins. No scars. Only memory. And that was enough. The galaxy moved forward, slower and more careful than before. And somewhere, deep beneath Earth, the stillness engine powered down. Not destroyed. Not forgotten. Just waiting. The galaxy changed after the Accord of Stillness, but change did not mean comfort. Worlds adjusted their laws, fleets stood down, and borders softened, yet fear remained just beneath the surface. Humanity now held a permanent seat on the Galactic Council, and every major decision passed through human review. Some species welcomed this balance. Others resented it in silence. On the council floor, discussions were polite but tense. Human delegates spoke rarely, choosing their words with care. They did not demand tribute or territory. They asked only for transparency and limits. That restraint confused many. The galaxy had expected conquerors. Instead, it faced guardians, and not everyone trusted that role. Beyond the public halls, shadows moved. Certain factions within the former empire believed the Accord was humiliation. They whispered that humans had gone too far, that no single species should hold such power. Secret meetings took place on distant worlds. Old admirals, arms dealers, and extremist leaders found common cause. They began planning a future without human oversight. On Earth, intelligence networks detected these signals. Phase 0 was still paused, but human analysts never slept. Data streams revealed unusual movements. Illegal research facilities. Unauthorized weapons tests. Someone was trying to rebuild the old way of war. Human leaders faced a hard truth. Peace did not end conflict. It only changed its shape. A decision was made, not by force but by presence. Humanity would send envoys. Not diplomats alone, but witnesses. Small human teams traveled to key worlds, openly and without escort. They observed, listened, and reported. Their message was simple. We are watching, but we are not your enemy. Most worlds accepted the envoys with caution. Some welcomed them. Others pretended cooperation while hiding their fear. On one distant industrial planet, a human observer named Elias arrived to inspect energy production. The planet's leaders smiled and offered full access. Behind closed doors, they accelerated a forbidden project. Deep beneath the planet's surface, a weapon was taking shape. It was crude compared to the stillness engine, but dangerous in its own way. A device designed to disrupt folded space, to collapse human Phase 0 travel. Its creators believed that if they could blind humans, the galaxy could rise again. The test was scheduled without council approval. When the device activated, it sent a violent shock through nearby space lanes. One human envoy ship was caught in the wave. Its signal cut off instantly. The galaxy froze. Within minutes, Earth detected the loss. Phase 0 commanders assembled in silence. This was the first direct violation of the Accord. The response would define the future. Some argued for immediate shutdown of the planet. Others urged restraint. The question was not what humans could do, but what they should do. Earth chose clarity over destruction. A single human ship appeared above the industrial world. It did not hide. It did not threaten. Its presence was announced openly on every channel. Civilian populations panicked, expecting annihilation. None came. Instead, a message was broadcast from Earth itself. The Accord stands. One life was endangered. This is your final warning. Simultaneously, every illegal facility on the planet lost power. Not damaged. Disabled. Weapons, reactors, research systems all went dark. No explosion followed. No one was harmed. The planet's leaders were exposed, their secrets revealed to the Council in real time. The message was clear. Humans did not need violence to enforce peace. They needed visibility. The conspirators across the galaxy panicked. Plans were abandoned. Alliances dissolved overnight. Those who had dreamed of rebellion realized something terrifying. Humans were not everywhere, but they did not need to be. They only needed to know. On the Galactic Council, the response was immediate. The planet's leadership was removed by council vote. Sanctions were applied. Oversight increased. For the first time, the Council acted as a unified body, not out of fear, but understanding. On Earth, the human public learned of the incident through open address. Leaders explained the choice they had made. No punishment beyond what was necessary. No revenge. Trust had been tested, and it had held. Humanity would not become what it had defeated. Across the stars, perception shifted again. Humans were no longer seen only as silent warriors or holders of terrible power. They were seen as enforcers of balance. Firm, patient, and fair. In a quiet office beneath Earth, a Phase Zero commander reviewed reports and allowed himself a rare moment of relief. The galaxy had stepped back from the edge. For now. But as he looked at the long-term projections, one truth remained. Peace was not permanent. It was a state that required constant care. Humanity would remain silent when possible, and decisive when necessary. The storm had passed, but the watch continued. Time passed, and the galaxy slowly learned how to breathe again. Trade routes reopened with new safeguards. Mixed species councils formed on border worlds. Old rivalries softened, though they never fully disappeared. The presence of humanity as a balancing force changed behavior everywhere. Wars did not vanish, but they shrank. Conflicts ended faster, quieter, and with far more negotiation. Silence had become a language everyone understood. Yet beneath this fragile calm, resentment still lived. Some species felt the accord of stillness had frozen history itself. They believed progress now required human permission. Among them were races that had once dominated entire regions of space. Their pride had not survived defeat. They did not plan open rebellion. They planned something worse. Proof. In hidden systems far from Council oversight, a coalition formed. They called themselves the Continuance. Their goal was not war with Earth, but exposure. They wanted to prove that humans were not as controlled as they claimed. That their power depended on fear, not justice. If they could force humans to overreact, the galaxy might turn against them. The Continuance chose their stage carefully. A remote world on the edge of known space, recently settled and lightly protected. A mixed population lived there, including humans, aliens, and refugees from old wars. It was a symbol of cooperation. That made it perfect. Without warning, a series of attacks struck the world's orbital infrastructure. Defense platforms were disabled. Communication relays collapsed. Panic spread as ships were forced to land. The attackers did not claim responsibility. They left just enough evidence to suggest human involvement. Forged signals. Altered data. Carefully planted lies. Within hours, accusations began to spread across the galaxy. Had humans attacked their own allies? Was this a secret enforcement action gone wrong? The Council demanded answers. Earth faced its greatest test yet. Power was easy to use. Restraint under suspicion was not. On Earth, emergency sessions were called. Phase Zero commanders analyzed the data. The truth was clear to them. This was a trap. But proof would take time, and lives were at risk now. The planet's population was exposed. Waiting too long could cost everything. Human leaders made a difficult choice. They would intervene, but not from the shadows. A human relief fleet entered the system openly. Medical ships, repair vessels, and peacekeepers moved into orbit. They broadcast every action live to the Council and the galaxy. No weapons were deployed. No secret systems activated. The message was visible and simple. We are here to protect lives. The Continuance did not expect this. Their plan relied on fear and secrecy. Public action stripped them of both. Desperate, they launched their final move. A strike on the planet's surface, meant to force human retaliation. The attack never landed. As the weapons fired, space around them slowed. Not frozen, but held. A limited stillness field activated, small and precise. The weapons fell harmlessly, their energy drained. For the first time, the galaxy saw the stillness engine used defensively, carefully, and with restraint. Human peacekeepers moved in, not as soldiers, but as shields. Civilians were evacuated. Injuries were treated. Not a single attacker was harmed. They were captured alive. The Council watched everything in real time. There was no room for doubt now. Humans had the power to erase worlds, yet chose to save one. The Continuance's lies collapsed under the weight of truth. Interrogations revealed the full plot. Names, funding routes, hidden bases. The coalition fell apart within days. Worlds that had secretly supported them withdrew in shame. The galaxy did not turn against Earth. It stood with it. On the recovered world, life slowly returned to normal. Humans and aliens worked side by side to rebuild. The planet became a symbol, not of fear, but trust. A place where power had been restrained, not unleashed. Back on Earth, leaders reflected on the outcome. The greatest danger had not been rebellion, but doubt. By choosing openness over silence, humanity had protected more than a single world. It had protected the idea of peace itself. Across the stars, stories spread. Not of destruction, but of control. Not of terror, but of choice. The galaxy learned a new truth about humans. They were not silent because they had nothing to say. They were silent because they listened. And as the stars turned and time moved on, the accord of stillness gained something it had lacked before: trust. The galaxy had learned to measure humans differently. They were no longer seen as a species to be underestimated, nor as tyrants to fear blindly. Humans had proven their strength, patience, and restraint. Still, some leaders whispered in dark corners, wondering if the calm would last. History had taught them that power always sought an outlet. With humans now at the center of galactic attention, the smallest misstep could ignite chaos. On Earth, Phase Zero was fully operational, though paused. Its crews monitored every system, every fleet, every unusual movement across known space. The stillness engine, though rarely used, remained ready. Humans had shown the galaxy what they could do, but Phase Zero was not just a weapon, it was a lesson in precision, patience, and strategy. The galaxy had yet to understand the full depth of that lesson. A new crisis emerged in the Outer Rim. A rogue fleet, led by an ex-admiral from the former Empire, had begun attacking supply convoys. Their goal was not conquest, only disruption. They wanted to force chaos, believing that humanity would overreact if innocent ships were attacked. The Council debated action for days. Some advocated sending fleets. Others urged patience, hoping humans would respond. On Earth, the response was measured. The fleet did not fire weapons. It did not engage in combat. Instead, human intelligence tracked the rogue forces and anticipated every move. When the rogue fleet moved to intercept a convoy, it found itself trapped by invisible currents of folded space. Its engines slowed without explanation. Navigation systems faltered. Ships could not accelerate or escape. Human ships then appeared, not to attack, but to guide. Civilian vessels were shepherded out of danger. Rogue ships were corralled, forced to surrender without a shot fired. The operation was swift, precise, and almost invisible. The galaxy watched in disbelief as the message spread: humans could stop war before it started. They could enforce order without destruction. The Council convened to witness the aftermath. They saw data streams confirming that every ship had been captured intact, no lives lost. Fleet logs revealed the exact sequence of events. There was no ambiguity, no chance for misinterpretation. Humans did not destroy. They corrected, controlled, and contained. This event sent a ripple through the galaxy. Former rebel leaders and insurgent factions realized that direct conflict with humans was not only futile, it was unnecessary. Their arguments for rebellion dissolved under the weight of undeniable evidence. The humans had not sought revenge. They had not claimed glory. They had simply enforced stability. Phase Zero commanders documented every detail. They studied the behavior of rogue fleets and the effects of folded space manipulation on their ships. Lessons were recorded, analyzed, and stored. Humans did not simply react. They learned, adapted, and improved. This was strategy on a level the galaxy had never seen. Meanwhile, the media across the galaxy began to change. Histories were rewritten to include these events. Humans were portrayed not only as warriors but as teachers of restraint. Novels, films, and simulations depicted their calm decisiveness. The legend of Phase Zero grew, but unlike fear-driven myths, it was grounded in truth. The galaxy understood that the humans were not invincible because of power, they were invincible because of patience and intelligence. Back on Earth, the leadership addressed the Council. Their words were simple and calm. We do not wish to rule the galaxy. We do not seek to destroy. We act only to preserve life and balance. Every word was deliberate, every pause intentional. Humans had learned that silence spoke louder than threats. Some council members still doubted. Old fears die slowly, and trust takes time to build. A test was proposed, a joint training exercise, involving human fleets and other species. Its goal was to demonstrate coordination, cooperation, and mutual understanding. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy moved not against humans, but with them. During the exercise, the full scope of human capability was revealed, not in violence, but in precision and strategy. Fleets moved in perfect synchronization, guided by humans who had anticipated every possible contingency. The Outer Rim's rogue tactics were simulated, neutralized, and corrected without harm. Observers from dozens of species took notes, learning lessons that would reshape their own doctrines. For the humans involved, there was no pride in this demonstration. There was only responsibility. Every action, every calculation, was made with the understanding that power without wisdom could destroy everything. Phase Zero, the stillness engine, and every hidden system were tools, not toys. Humans had survived when the galaxy doubted them, and now they ensured that survival would be permanent. By the end of the exercise, the message was clear. Humans had not fought to conquer. They had acted to teach, to stabilize, and to protect. The galaxy began to understand that the greatest weapon humanity possessed was not its ships, weapons, or technology. It was its mind. Discipline, patience, and foresight had allowed one species to change the course of history without spilling unnecessary blood. In the council chambers, leaders slowly rose, acknowledging what had been accomplished. Former critics nodded in respect. Even those who had feared humans most admitted the truth. The galaxy had changed, and humans had changed it. Power was no longer measured by fleets or weapons alone. It was measured by judgment, restraint, and the courage to act wisely. And deep beneath Earth, in quiet halls where Phase Zero remained ready, commanders reviewed simulations for the future. There would always be threats. There would always be challenges. But humanity had proven itself capable of meeting them, not with noise, not with fear, but with control. The galaxy now watched, aware and cautious, yet confident that Earth would not betray the trust it had earned. Humanity's counterattack was over, but its lessons were only beginning. And for the first time, the stars felt not the roar of war, but the steady, deliberate heartbeat of a species that had mastered both silence and power. The galaxy had finally learned to see humans in a new light. After decades of conflict, silence, and careful demonstration, humanity had proven its power and restraint. Borders were redrawn, old rivalries cooled, and the Accord of Stillness became law across star systems. Trade routes reopened. Fleets resumed patrols. Yet beneath the calm, an understanding lingered. The galaxy would never again underestimate Earth. On Earth, life returned to a rhythm familiar yet forever changed. Cities rebuilt, economies recovered, and populations grew with cautious optimism. Humanity no longer hid behind fear. Instead, it embraced responsibility. Phase Zero remained ready, but its activation was no longer the answer to every problem. Humans had learned that patience and strategy could accomplish what force never could. In the Galactic Council, humans now held a permanent and respected role. Other species watched every decision carefully. Their eyes measured restraint as much as authority. Humanity did not seek glory or conquest, but it commanded respect through intelligence, foresight, and unwavering principle. Every council debate now included humans, not as challengers to fear, but as guides for balance. Yet not all species accepted this quietly. Small factions still lingered on the fringes, testing boundaries, spreading rumors, and trying to provoke mistakes. Their efforts were futile. Humans responded only when lives were at risk or balance threatened, and even then, action was precise, measured, and non-lethal whenever possible. The message was clear. Mistakes were observed, but unnecessary retaliation was not part of human doctrine. In one distant sector, A young human officer named Leora oversaw a fleet responsible for supply and protection of multiple colonies. Reports arrived of a system destabilized by rogue mining operations. Civilian habitats were at risk, but no fleet had dared intervene. Leora coordinated a mission, carefully deploying ships to guide the miners away and restore balance. No weapons fired. No threats were issued. Civilian lives were protected, and the miners were persuaded to comply through precise, strategic communication. Across the galaxy, this operation became an example. Stories spread of humans acting decisively, not violently. They were stabilizers, not conquerors. Their reputation as fearsome warriors remained, but it was now paired with a new truth. Humans acted for justice, not revenge. The legend of Phase Zero shifted from terror to principle. Back on Earth, leaders reflected on the past decades. The victories were undeniable, but they had come at great cost. Lives lost in early battles, cities destroyed, and the weight of responsibility had shaped humanity into something stronger, wiser, and more disciplined. They had not sought domination. They had sought survival, and in doing so, they had reshaped the galaxy. The Council requested Earth's guidance on future galactic policies. Humans proposed a framework: cooperation, transparency, and shared responsibility. Advanced technology would be shared selectively, with safeguards. Border systems would operate with mutual observation, not secrecy. Trade and diplomacy would replace intimidation as the primary tools of influence. The galaxy listened. Slowly, war became less frequent, replaced by negotiation and careful planning. In hidden chambers beneath Earth, Phase Zero remained active, but it was no longer solely a weapon of war. It became a guardian, a tool of readiness, and a symbol of restraint. Human commanders reviewed simulations, not for destruction, but for prevention. Each plan anticipated every possible threat, every misstep, and every accidental spark of conflict. Humanity's approach now combined foresight, strategy, and patience in ways the galaxy had never seen. Meanwhile, human culture flourished in ways tied to its experiences. Stories, art, and education emphasized cooperation, intelligence, and ethical responsibility. History celebrated not only survival but wisdom. Generations were raised knowing that silence could be a weapon, but also that patience and understanding could be stronger. Phase Zero, the stillness engine, and every other tool existed not for dominance, but as a safeguard against mistakes large enough to threaten entire star systems. Even the former empire, once arrogant and proud, acknowledged humanity's role in shaping the galaxy. Leaders who had once plotted against Earth now sought guidance. Military academies taught human strategy. Diplomats studied Earth's restraint. The galaxy began to understand a crucial truth: power was meaningless without judgment. As the years passed, humans became teachers as much as protectors. Young officers traveled to distant worlds to advise on security, governance, and resource management. Phase Zero ships patrolled, not as instruments of fear, but as silent guardians. The galaxy watched and learned. Every action demonstrated the principle humans had lived by from the first moment of conflict. Strength was measured not by destruction, but by restraint, intelligence, and responsibility. On Earth, leaders reflected on their journey. Humanity had survived attempts to destroy it, endured unimaginable loss, and faced the galaxy's greatest threats. Through patience, strategy, and careful action, they had not only survived, they had changed the rules of the universe. They had shown that silence, when wielded wisely, could be louder than any weapon. In the council chambers across the stars, the story of humans was taught as a lesson for all species. Conflicts were studied, failures analyzed, and victories celebrated, not for glory, but for wisdom. The galaxy understood something new. Humans were not conquerors, nor were they tyrants. They were guardians of balance, masters of strategy, and living proof that patience could triumph over chaos. And deep beneath Earth, where Phase Zero waited quietly, human commanders smiled only in private. They knew the galaxy was safe, for now. The stars stretched infinitely, filled with possibilities, dangers, and mysteries yet unseen. Humanity was ready, patient, and vigilant. Silent, but never powerless. The war was over, but the watch continued. And for the first time, the galaxy truly understood the strength of a species that had learned to fight without hatred, to win without destruction, and to lead without ruling. The galaxy had been changed forever. Humanity had not only survived, it had taught the universe what it truly meant to be strong. And as the stars turned, silent, steady, and eternal, Earth waited, ready for whatever came next.